Buon pomeriggio a tutti e a tutti, benvenuti e bentornati a un appuntamento normale con Primaria Live. Dopo 3 appuntamenti con le presentazioni dei libri, torniamo nella nostra veste solita, torniamo a parlare di didattica, di spunti didattici più in generale, e lo facciamo con il terzo appuntamento graditissimo con Oxford. Oggi ci parleranno del piacere della lettura. Io sono molto interessato. Il piacere della lettura in inglese lo stimola al piacere di leggere in un momento particolare come questo. Faccio solo una premessa tecnica che mi hanno chiesto di fare. Mi raccomando, non siate timorosi, potete fare domande sia in inglese sia in italiano, non ci sono problemi. E allora, dopo questa premessa, vado da Jennifer Single.
Buon pomeriggio a tutti.
Bentornata.
Ciao,
Jennifer.
Mauro.
Grazie, ci siamo visti da poco. Jennifer, vabbè,
Sì.
Dico solo che è consulente pedagogico e formatrice insegnante, consulente pedagogico e formatrice per Oxford. E poi c'è con noi anche Andrea Barbiero.
Hello everyone, buon pomeriggio.
Ciao Andrea, benvenuto.
Ciao Mauro.
Ciao, anche Andrea, insegnante, consulente pedagogico e formatore per Oxford. E allora niente, vi lascio la parola ad Andrea e noi ci vediamo alla fine. Grazie.
A dopo. Ciao a tutti.
Ciao. Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Andrea Barbiero and I know what you're all thinking. Andrea Barbiero? How is that an English name? Actually, it's not. I am Italian. I was born in Italy, but I was raised in Canada. And so my friends call me Andy. Please call me Andy as well. And it is my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon to share with you something that is also something that I really love, and this is the love of reading. But most importantly, how reading can be something really helpful for your students during this time. And I see so many of you out there joining us today. There's over 400 of you that have tuned in. I can see Barbara and I can see Elena and Lucia. Angela's here. So many of you are here. I can actually see you out there. That's not true. I can't see you. But even though I can't see you and I can't hear you, I can absolutely feel you. And I feel you here with us as a community working together to try and get through these really, really difficult times. And so before we begin the presentation, I just want to be able to say to all of you as teachers, just how proud I am of your ability to be able to conform and work with all of these students online. And I know it hasn't been easy. And I just want to tell you, I think you're doing a really great job. So today we're here to talk about reading. We're here to talk a little bit about how we can use reading to develop, how we can develop reading for pleasure for your primary school students. And Jennifer and I are going to share this presentation, and we're going to talk about, I'm going to start to talk a little bit about not the how, not the why, but the how. And I want to talk a little bit about our Oxford Learners Bookshelf, our tool that will allow you to share a screen with your students and share these reading activities with them. And so that's going to be the beginning of this presentation. When I finish, I'm going to pass on to my colleague Jennifer, who's going to talk to you about extensive reading for primary children. And most importantly, she's going to share some ideas for using Oxford University Press Graded Readers with your students through distance learning. So let's begin by talking about the platform. Our platform is called Oxford Learners Bookshelf, and it's basically an ebook platform. It's a bookshelf that's digital. And the homepage is on the bottom of your screen. It is www.oxfordlearnersbookshelf.com. And from that home screen, all you need to do to be able to have access to the books is to simply register and sign in. How many of you are already registered on Oxford Learners Bookshelf? Share with me in the chat box if you're already registered by just by typing yes. How many are registered on Oxford Learners Bookshelf? I can see some of you already typing in. Yes, so yeah. Cinzia says not me, but Elena is. Gina's in there. Isabella says she uses it as well. Excellent. So for those of you that are already using it, this is just a review. For those of you that haven't started using it yet, this is going to be new to you. And so going to the home page, the first step is to register. Registration looks like this. It's a little profile that you see on the left-hand side of your screen. Now, before trying to register, if you notice on the right-hand side of your screen, it asks you if you already have an Oxford ID. So what is an Oxford ID? Well, if any of you have already registered for access to an Oxford Dictionary website or the Oxford Teachers Club website, then you already have an Oxford ID. And so you can try to sign in with your username and your password. Because for Oxford, all you need is one username and one password to get into all of our websites. But if you don't, that's okay. All you need to do is fill in this profile on the left-hand side. In the profile, I'm just going to show you quickly with a little pointer. You would just put your first name here, last name, and username. Now, when I talk about your username, our suggestion is that you use a... I just see that the screens are jumping ahead a little bit. Just give me 1 second here to get back. Okay. So as I was saying, if you use a username, our suggestion for your username is to use a valid email address. Now, why is this important? Because if you were to forget your password, you would be able to reset your password and it would be sent to the email address you used in your username. So our suggestion is to use a valid email address as a username. Then you can select your password. And the next step is to simply click onto the box that says Terms and Conditions and create your account. At this point, you will have an Oxford Learners Bookshelf username and password, and you're ready to sign in. Just a quick word about the terms and conditions box. Now, by agreeing to our terms and conditions, and then by all means, go ahead and go and read them when you go in and register. But by agreeing to our terms and conditions, you're basically giving us permission to be able to invite you to more of these webinars. And so we obviously will recommend that you do agree to those terms and conditions so we can communicate with you. But of course, the privacy policy says we have to ask you first. So absolutely have a look at that before you do agree. So once you've created that account, it's time to sign in. You can sign in using your username and password. And this is also the place where you can reset your password if you forget the password. So you can see just below where it says password, it says forgotten your username and password. That's where you click, and that's where you can reset the password in case you've forgotten. And that's why it's so important to use as your username the email address that you use normally when you receive an email. Okay, now it's quiz time. Let's see if you are all listening intently. I have a few questions for you. The first question, and you can answer this in the chat box, is if you have an Oxford ID, do you need to register for access on Oxford Learners Bookshelf? Yes? No. If you have an Oxford ID, do you need to register for access on OLB? Yes or no? I see Elena saying no. Cinzia says no. Oh, they're coming quickly now. All of you are saying no. Excellent. You're absolutely right. If you already have an Oxford ID, that's the username and password you can use to get inside of Oxford Learners Bookshelf. Excellent. Second question. I'm glad you were all paying close attention. I had no doubt you're all maestres, so you're all always listening intently. The next question, what do we suggest you choose to use as a username and why? What do we suggest you choose to use as a username and why? What do you think, teachers? Silvana was the first one to say email. Exactly, email address. Why the email address? And in fact, Elena says valid email address, which is even more important. Why is it so important for you to use your email address when you register? Any ideas? Exactly. Good, Giuseppe, because that's how you recover a forgotten password. Good. I'm glad to see you're all paying attention on this. And I mean, please excuse me if I accentuate these points, but it is quite important because it's things you need to know to be able to access this platform. And Jennifer is going to explain why a little bit further on when she talks about how you can use this for distance learning. Final question. What do you do if you forget your password? And I've kind of answered this already. What do you do if you forget your password? Do you remember? You can reset your password, Isabella. Exactly. There's that link on the bottom of the sign-in page that allows you to reset your password. A couple things to remember. When you reset your password, if it doesn't come into your inbox immediately, check your spam box. It may have gone there instead. All right, excellent. So that's how you have access to the Oxford Learners Bookshelf platform to see these ebooks and to see these readers. Now, maybe a lot of what I just said is something that you understand now, but maybe tomorrow it's going to be hard to remember. So I want to point out another place that you can go on the homepage of Oxford Learners Bookshelf, where everything I've just said has been repeated for you in a written form. So here in the photo, you see a little kind of a wagon wheel link. This is called the Help and Support link. You find it on the homepage of Oxford Learners Bookshelf on the top right-hand side. By clicking that link, you'll be able to see the Help and Support page with all of the links to be able to read through exactly what I just talked to you about now. So as you can see here, you can find out how to do registration, how to sign in, how to add and buy books, how to use the course books, how to use the graded readers, which is what we're going to look at today. So this is all listed for you as a tutorial that you can read through in case you forgot some of these instructions, available both to you and to your students. By the way, a question that a lot of teachers ask me is, wow, Andy, this is great. I have all of my readers in Oxford Learners Bookshelf, but what about my students? How can they get access to this as well? Well, your students can do the same thing you do. Go to the homepage, register, sign in, and if they're quite young, they could get their parents to register for them with their parents' email, sign in, and they'll have the same bookshelf that you have with all of the graded readers available also to them. So the procedure that we're following together today is the same procedure that your students with their parents can follow as well. I see a question coming up from Maestra Elisa. Let me see what she asks. I entered with another account, but I'm regularly registered for the webinar. It's okay. It is. No problem at all. You can just join us from a different account if you'd like to. Okay, I'm going to move forward again. Now, it rarely happens, but sometimes you may have some kind of a technical error, and you want to get in touch with us to understand what went wrong. So there is a link at the bottom of that page called Contact Us. And when you click the link Contact Us, there are 3 ways that you can communicate with our IT support if you need help on Oxford Learners Bookshelf. The first way is to send us an email. You can see here the email is eltsupport@oup.com. And these are people that can answer your questions. They're based in the UK, and they also speak in English. Or sorry, in Italian. Of course they speak in English. They're in the UK. The other way is to call them. So there's a telephone number. Remember, this is a telephone number from the UK, and it's UK time. They're 1 hour behind us. And the third way is through live chat. So you could click the live chat, and on regular business hours, Monday to Friday, between 9 and 5, you could chat with someone live and ask them questions that you may have about difficulties that you're having technically with the platform itself. Of the 3 ways, my suggestion is to use the email. It's the most direct way. And to always remember to share with them a lot of information. So make sure you tell them the book you're using, the problem you're having, and if possible, give them also your a screenshot of any error message that comes up on your screen. Okay, and so that's how you are able to get into the bookshelf. Now I want to tell you a little bit about what you'll find once you log in. So as soon as you log into the bookshelf, you will see this pop-up. 148 free ebooks available to you until the end of June. All you need to do at this point is to click the blue box at the bottom right-hand side that says Add to Bookshelf, and these books will magically appear in your bookshelf. Now, when you log in for the first time, if this pop-up doesn't immediately appear, then try to log out and log back in again. At that point, they should be there. If they still haven't appeared at that time, try to change your browser. So if you're using Chrome, switch over to Explorer. Go to the home page and sign in. If you still don't see that pop-up, feel free to contact any of us here at Oxford University Press educational consultants, or perhaps your local rep for Rizzoli, and we can try and help you. All right, so when you get that pop-up, you click Add to Bookshelf, and at this point, you'll receive all of your books inside your bookshelf. And this is what it looks like. You get to see all of the different books that appear. So we're focusing today specifically on books that are aimed for young learners, A1 level. Okay, so this is what they look like here. And in order to be able to access one of these books, to open them and to see what's inside, you would need to put your arrow from your mouse on top of that book and click onto the book where you see that little arrow on the bottom. Click for more information is what it was going to say when it pops up. By doing that, you will get the information about that book and the ability to open it and to screen through it. So in this information area, it gives you some very useful information about the book that you've chosen to look at. For example, this book has 707 words. Can anybody tell me what level this book is? What is its CEFR level? It's a Common European Framework level. Can anyone find that information on this screen? Tell me in your chat box. What level is this book? Who's going to be the first to give me the answer in the chat box? Ah, yeah, there it is. It was Arabella who tells me it's A1. Exactly, first level. And that information is shown right below the title. So these are two key pieces of information that can be useful for you in selecting the book. So at that point, click Open. And there's the page of your book. And so now your students and you have the ability to read this book together. Your students can do it if they log in at home. You can do it from your home. If you want to use this for distance learning, you can use an intermediary platform for teaching for distance. For example, Microsoft Teams or Zoom, for example. And you can do a screen share showing this with your students and reading through it together. And so already at this point, reading is great fun. Just looking at a chat really quickly, I noticed Daniela says that she's B1. I'm focusing on the A1 books, but there are higher level books in here as well. So it's worth your while to go and have a look and look for the other level of the books. So reading in itself is fun to do, of course, but this offers you something a little bit more. This gives you the option of also having audio so that your students can not just see the words, but they can hear them as well. And we're allowing you to hear it in an American English, that's the accent I'm using, or in a British English. You can choose the way you want to hear it. So what does that look like? Well, by clicking on to one of those two flags, you'll see a toolbar pop up that looks like this. Let's have a closer look at this toolbar together to see the different options you have in listening to the audio together with your students. Obviously, first of all, you can, let me see if I can take the pointer out again. Here you can simply play it. Okay, so hitting the play button. But beyond just being able to play it, you also have the option of slowing down the sound or speeding up the sound. Now, how is this useful? Well, when you're working with students that are having some difficulty with being able to comprehend well, slowing it down a little bit helps them to hear the words in a clearer way. So now they can see it, they can hear it, and they can follow along. Now, here's what I really like about this tool that I think makes it really useful. Not only can the students listen to the words that they're reading, but using this toolbar on the far right, that you can see there's a record button. If your students have a microphone connected to their computer, they can record their voice and play it back. Now, how is that useful? Well, imagine if they're listening to this pronunciation of the words that they're reading. They can mimic that, record it, and compare it to what they heard. There's no better way to practice pronunciation than to be able to hear it and then mimic it and listen back to it. In fact, it's how you learned your first language. Imagine as a child, when they're listening to their parents, how they're learning new words. They're mimicking those words from their parents. So this duplicates that form. So here are the key things you can do with Oxford Learners Bookshelf. I was able to show you in these few minutes that we had together how to register, how to log in, how to open your book, and this fantastic audio tool you can use to listen to this book together with your students. Remember, this can be done as self-study for your students at home, or you can screen share this through a platform like Zoom or Microsoft Team or Skype and share the audio with your students while they're watching your screen. Now it's time to look at some more fun things you can do and get it in a bit more detail. We're going to look now at extensive reading for primary children and ideas for using these graded readers as a lesson. Remember, these are just tools. You're the teacher. Teachers teach, tools don't teach. And so here are some fun ideas for teachers to be able to teach using these tools. And so I'm going to invite back my colleague, Jen.
Hello,
Hi, Jen.
Andy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can everyone hear me okay? I'll just give you a moment to write. I hope you can all hear me. I can see lots of people writing. I hope it's clear. Well, thank you, Andy, for talking us through how to use Oxford Learners Bookshelf. And before I continue with the next part of our session this afternoon, I'd like to say that it's a real pleasure to be back here again to talk to you at a Rizzoli Primaria live event. So thank you to Rizzoli, our partner, for asking us to come back. So Andy has taken you through the tools that Oxford Learners Bookshelf offer you. And now for the second part of our session, I'd like to show you some ideas of what we can do with graded readers with our primary children. And most specifically in this period that we're all at home and we're not at school in the usual way. So Andy, can you change slide for me, please? And we'll get started. First of all, let's look at what exactly extensive reading is, because extensive reading is really what we can do best with all of these readers that we have available to us. So we have extensive reading, and it's reading for pleasure, in simple terms, reading for the enjoyment of reading. And quite simply, it's the opposite of intensive reading. And intensive reading is when we read and translate and we use a dictionary. And this reading is different. It's reading with no testing, it's reading for fun, and it's reading without translating. Okay, so it's students reading for the fun of reading. It's reading what you want to read, so something that you like, when you want to read it, so wherever you may be and whenever you want, and where you like to read as well. So like the children on the picture there, they're deeply engrossed in their books, sitting on a pile of books, but you could be reading in the garden, reading in your bedroom, wherever you may be. So extensive reading, quite simply, is reading for pleasure. And we've shown you in the first part of the seminar that we have 148 graded readers available through Oxford until the end of June. Now, approximately 24, even slightly more of those are suitable for primary students. And we think that at the moment, while we're stuck at home and on lockdown and schools are closed, this is the perfect time to help our students to develop a love for reading. Now, if we do lots of extensive reading or reading for pleasure, there's lots of benefits. And you probably know some of them already, but let's call them up and talk through them together. Number one, extensive reading helps children to become better readers. Now, that's not just in English, but it's a cross subject. So reading more and more often in Italian and in English just helps our children to develop better reading skills. Number two, it helps to improve our vocabulary because we see lots of new words when we're reading and we can learn more effectively. We can also remember words better, especially when we use books with pictures in, like the example that Andy showed you before. So improves our vocabulary and memory. Number three, our third benefit, it also improves our listening ability. Now, that's partly because we can listen to the books, but also because it helps us to understand how a word is formed in English, and that helps us in turn with listening. If you think about phonics and some of the difficulties of the sounds in the English language, reading also helps our listening ability too. Number four, helps us to improve our speaking and pronunciation. And digital books and ebooks like the ones that Andy has shown you help us with this even more than reading a typical printed book, because we can listen to the audio and we can use the voice recording functionality to check our pronunciation too. Number five, the fifth benefit. We can help children to learn grammar in a very natural way through extensive reading, because we see our verbs and our adjectives and our pronouns all used in very natural contexts and real contexts too. Final one for the slide, Andy. It also helps with spelling, and spelling, of course, is perhaps one of the more difficult skills for children in English. We have some very strange sounds in English. For example, the UGH, which we sometimes pronounce as okay, like tough, rough, trough, lots of different pronunciation of the same sound. And reading plenty and seeing those words more often helps our children with spelling too. But it's not finished yet. If we go on to the next slide, I'll show you another three. Increases motivation. This is really important because if our primary children read more often, they become better readers, and they also realise that they can read in English, okay? And this is really, really important for motivation levels. So if in this period that we're stuck at home reading and we can do more reading, we can also help our students to stay motivated in English and also improve their attitude towards English too. Now, normally primary children are very happy to learn English. They enjoy English lessons, they love their teachers, so you all do an excellent job there. But for those students that are perhaps more reluctant to speaking English, or are a little bit shyer, reading for pleasure can really help to improve their attitude towards English. And a final point on this slide, reading really does help to create a positive learning environment. And I think that that applies whether we be in class or whether we're working from home. And as Andy mentioned in the first part of our seminar, we can do all of these readers, we can use all of these tools that we have via platforms that we use to communicate with our pupils at the moment already. So you can set reading to do as homework, you can ask students to choose books that they want to read whenever they want, or you can project them on the screens when you're on your school lessons, your didattica a distanza, and you can read through them as stories together, or indeed as informative books. So lots of benefits of reading for pleasure, and all of those can help our students develop a love for reading as well, because generally their experience of reading in English becomes more positive the more they do. Okay, so let's move on. Now, the books that Andy showed you earlier, as I said, there are around 24 that are particularly suitable for primary level. So they're at a level A1 on the Common European Framework. We can simply do three things with them. We can listen to the books to help us to improve our pronunciation and to enjoy the experience of extensive listening too. We can also read the books either individually or as a group. And we can also use them to help us to discover and learn something new. And I'll explain what I mean there in a couple of minutes, because we also always learn a lot when we're reading a book, but the type of titles that we have available to us in the selection that Oxford are offering until the end of June are particularly interested if we like CLIL, or if we're looking to have a discovery-based style lesson. And there's no better time than to do that while we're on lockdown from school and we're looking for alternative ways of involving our students. So there's two different types of reader in the library that are suitable for primary children. Now, if you're looking for pure reading for pleasure and fun, I recommend the Read and Imagine series. So I'll show you what one of those looks like in a second. And on the other hand, if you'd like your students to become motivated with a discovery approach or learning something new, I recommend the Read and Discover range. And you can see a couple of covers of those books on the screen now. So I know it's very, very small, but at the top, you can see there's a blue band and it either says Read and Imagine or Read and Discover. And we can see two examples there. And simply put, the Read and Imagine are stories, and the Read and Discover are informative reference style books. And actually, Into the Sky, that you can see on the screen now, is an excellent title. It's one of my personal favourites. So if you would like to go onto Oxford Learners Bookshelf later on and register and accept these books until the end of June, definitely check out this title, because it's a really, really useful one. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, and you can see what they look like in the bookshelf. So as Andy explained earlier on, we actually have a digital bookcase, a bookshelf. Okay, so you can see we have the different shelves of the bookshelf, and you have lots of different titles there. And the ones that you can see on the screen at the moment are examples from the Read and Imagine series. So the stories, the fictional titles. These are really fun. I read them with my daughter at home, a really enjoyable one, and children of primary age love these. And we have them at two levels. The blue ones are a level 1, and the level 2, slightly higher level, are red. The ones that you can see on the screen at the moment are just an example of the Read and Discover range. So these are slightly different, they're informative, they're full colour, and they also include a picture dictionary as well as activities to keep our children motivated and involved. Okay, so you can see we have two different types of reader. Now, one of the first things that I recommend that you try using these graded readers while school is with Didattica a Distanza would be to experiment with the use of mind maps. Now, I know primary teachers use mind maps very frequently. In fact, people in all school sectors do, because they're seen as being a very effective way of motivating our students. And mind maps are useful for lots of things. The first one is to organise our thoughts. So this applies to children too. If we read something, we can use a mind map to help us to organise what we think about what we're reading. Okay. The second thing that we can do with a mind map is use it to help us to remember new things. So I'll show you a couple of examples shortly, but a mind map can be really useful for lots of different learner types to actually remember what we're learning, okay? Visual learners, for example, or kinesthetic learners who need to actually put things down and make notes to be able to understand. We can expand our vocabulary using mind maps. We can also, if Andy calls at the next point, we can use mind maps to plan further projects or activities. So these could be really useful if you're planning a project or a CLIL project as a class, or even individually in times of lockdown. And the next point from the slide is we can use mind maps to make connections. And normally when we read, we make some of those connections very naturally. And a mind map can help children to actually put that into a real context for them. So we read something, we relate it to things that we already know, and we can make connections between things in our own lives and what we read in a book, for example, and connections between words of new vocabulary too. So I definitely recommend trying mind maps with these readers while you're doing Didattica a Distanza. And I'm going to show you an example using one of my favourite Read and Discover graded readers, which is called Schools. And this is a really nice one to start with. And if you look at the next slide, what I've done here is created a really simple mind map. Now, you could show this on the screen during one of your lessons. You could also ask the children to start to put one together very easily. They can hold them up on a piece of paper in front of the screen. And here we've got schools in the middle, and I've got 3 categories of words that we introduce through this reader. So first category, buildings. What kind of words do you think we may see in this reader related to buildings? They're all adjectives that describe school buildings. I'm interested to hear your ideas through the chat. What kind of words do you think that we may see in the reader to describe school buildings? Any ideas? And of course, there's lots of adjectives that we may see in this section of the book. I can see Cinzia has to leave us. Don't worry, Cinzia, no problem. Coloured, Raffaella. Yes, we have coloured school buildings like the one that you can see on the screen in Norway. Okay, so gym, we may have different rooms within the school. You're right, perfect. Schools, big schools, library, boring school, home school. Yeah, plenty of different words to describe the building. Lots of adjectives. Thank you, Eleanor, too. Lots of adjectives there. What about transport? What words may we see for transport? Because transport refers to the method of transport that our children use to get to school. So what may we see there? I'll just give you a moment to write. Okay, bus, I can see, bike, bus, okay, excellent, school bus, perfect, okay. And the final one then, lunchtime. What do you think we could see as words to describe lunchtime? And bearing in mind, in this book about schools, we go to lots of different countries. What words may we learn through this book talking about lunchtime? Oh, I can see the suggestion about transport there from Alessandra, about the sledge. That's a great one, excellent. And it's true, yes. See, I can see lots more transport suggestions coming on. I'll wait and see if we get any about lunchtime. Yeah, break, canteen, excellent, lots of words. So Andy, can you populate the mind map for us, please? There we are. Okay, and you can see lots of examples here. So cafeteria, tray at lunchtime, even please and thank you, which are words that are visited within this book. Okay, so you can see that through a very simple activity, reading a book, chapter by chapter or page by page, you can actually work a lot with vocabulary. Let's move on to another example. We can also do things such as this with the title with school. We can use the words that we learn within the book to write very simple sentences on, we could use a sheet of paper and then have all of our students hold it up to the screen. Describe your school using words that you've learned, or describe your ideal school too. And we can use readers to help us to develop and widen our vocabulary. So we can group words together in categories, such as all of the verbs related to school or all of the adjectives related to school. And bear in mind that we have lots and lots of titles like this in the library that you can use to try these activities. Let's look at another mind map for a moment. This time I'm going to use cities, which is the level 2 title. And you can see that I've got examples here. What is a city? Things that we can do in a city, and transport. And obviously you can have lots of different categories here. So can you give me a couple of examples for what is a city? And I can see Andy's called up the first one already, building. Any other ideas of words that we may find to describe a city? I'm intently watching the chat box. Excellent. Cars, theatre, excellent suggestions. Yeah. Andy, can you call up some of the other examples? Okay, a city, it's made up of streets and lots of people. And obviously we can populate these mind maps as much as we want. And as you can see here, I've made a connection. So this is where it really helps children to make connections between vocabulary sets, which is a skill that if they start to do it at primary school, it will be useful for them the whole time that they're learning English. Because lots of people, when we look at the things to do category, if you could call up those next parts as well, Andy, thank you. We have lots of people, tourists, and then we find tourists in the things to do category as well, because we find them in museums and city sites. And as you can see, the transport category there, I've started to complete as well. Cars, taxis, underground. And this is just done very, very simply. It took me just a few minutes to do that yesterday with a document on my computer, Word, PowerPoint, whatever you normally use. And you can also do them just with paper and a pen. Okay, so you can ask students to try doing them as well after they've read the books. Or if you read a chapter together via your platform or your Didattica Distanza lesson, you could then set it as homework to do a simple mind map, categorizing the vocabulary that they've learned. Thank you for all of your suggestions. I can see coming through the chat box. Okay, so let's move on, and I'll show you a brief example about how we can also use them with the read and imagine titles. So far we've looked at the reference titles, the read and discover, but remember that you can also do a mind map with a story. And sometimes we consider doing this less, but it's a very useful exercise because students can read a story or indeed just listen to the story, and then they can use the mind map after the activity to note down the names of the characters, such as Rosie, Ben, Grandpa, who appear in this story in the big city. And things that characters see, it helps the children to really understand what they've read, and the things that the characters do in the book. So this is a very simple structure. Now, I can see that Marie-Lisa in the chat asks if we have these maps at the end of the books. Now, they're not actually in the books. No, these are my suggestion of something that you can very easily create or ask the children to do after reading either a chapter or a book. Now, they take minimal preparation, but there are other things to do at the back of the book. So we don't have mind maps specifically, but there are lots and lots of activities at the back of the books. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples now. Andy, if you could change slide, I'll show an example. Now, as you will have noticed from the bookshelf that both Andy and I showed you a while ago, for every single book, there are not only exercises that you can complete in the book, but there is also a separate activity book. Now, these, of course, aren't obligatory. If we're doing extensive reading, it's all about fun. So we don't have to test, we don't have to do activities. But if we do want to do something, or we want the children to try doing some simple activities at home, I definitely recommend these activity books because they give you numerous extra activities using the content of the book. So the one that you can see on the screen at the moment is cities, and there's an exercise on transportation. So you can highlight on the page, you can write notes on the page, you can put a post-it note on there. There's lots of things that you can do with these when you're projecting them to the children, or the children can do at home, either with their parents or their brothers and sisters. And it's a really, really good way of keeping them involved with the content that they read. Andy was also about to show you another example there. We also have activity books for the Read and Imagine series, so the stories. And this one here is related to the example that I used before in the big city. And as you can see, you have activities there as well. So simple things, put a tick or a cross in the box. And there's questions to answer. This one's a slightly higher level one, but we also have lower level ones too. And there's a picture dictionary in the books too. So it's quite interesting because in the most basic form, these readers can be really useful for reading and listening. But if you want more work, you can try mind maps. You can use the picture dictionary. You can use the activities from the activity book. And Andy before showed you how you can use the listening, okay? Now, the listening is literally just the tip of the iceberg of what you can do with Oxford Learners Bookshelf. I mentioned how you can write on the screen or on the slide, how you can leave a note. There's lots of things that you can do. And the children can do that at home as well. Earlier on, I saw a question in the chat box. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name who asked it. But you can also download these ebooks to be used offline through an app if you're interested in doing that. But you can use them offline or online, okay? So in the last couple of slides here, I'd like to show you a few other ideas that you can try, different things to mind maps, and suggest a couple of titles to try out, because I've read a lot of these readers and I've put my primary teacher hat on, and I've thought of lots of ideas that you can try out. So see what you think. Number one, you could try asking the children to design posters about a particular topic. Okay, now the topic can be anything that you choose. It could be a CLIL topic, and I've got a suggested reader for that we'll be able to see in a moment. Let's go on to the next one, because obviously they're animated slightly different than they were before. We could also ask the children to try retelling a story using very simple sentences or pictures. Okay, so lower levels, pictures are fine. Higher levels, simple sentences. And finally, on this slide, we could try making a leaflet, like a dépliant, for a new art gallery, okay, full of different types of pictures and art. And Andy will now show you the titles that I recommend trying these activities with. So designing a poster, I definitely recommend at the beach, especially because we're starting to think about the summer, even though we're not sure what sort of summer we'll have this year and whether the beach will be possible. It's a great thing to try for a poster for the beach. Retelling a story, Monkeys in School, is an excellent title to try. So ask the children to retell the story using some very simple pictures to describe what happens in Monkeys in School. And the art title, the read and discover title, is the perfect one to try designing a simple dépliant describing an art gallery with sculptures and pictures to show abstract art and so on. The children have a lot of fun with these sorts of activities, and it's all related to what they're doing and listening to in English. Let's look at a few more ideas with some of my other favourite titles. Oh, I forgot about this slide for a second. This is just to give you an example of the sorts of activities that you find inside the art title. And inside the book itself, you've got lots of activities too. So this one is a project, and there's a simple activity here where the children have to write words under pictures and draw their own picture as well. And that's actually built into the main book. Okay, so look out for the activities in the books too. And some are very simple, very enjoyable projects. Next slide, Andy, with a few more ideas to try. First one is to create a Did You Know mini book of facts. And I'm sure as primary teachers, you're all really familiar with how you make a simple mini book from an A4 piece of paper, okay, with a hole in the middle. I know it's quite difficult to see while I'm doing it. And then you can make a mini book, okay? And I'm a big fan of these mini books. And this one I've made on plastic. Now, I haven't yet filled in the content. This is something I'd like my daughter to do. But you can do a mini book for any CLIL topic, and you can fill it with lots of useful facts about your topic. Okay, so in this case, plastic. And I've used a glittery pen to look like water on the front. Okay, so if we could go back, I can't see the slide anymore. There we are. Thank you. The next one, how about trying to create your own solar system? Okay, using paper plates or paper circles. Okay, now I've got a title to recommend for that, and it's a really fun activity that your children can try at home. Final one, trying lap books using science. So for the mini book, I recommend plastic, because it talks about recycling, it talks about how we use plastic in alternative environment, and it's obviously quite a pertinent topic at the moment because everyone's worried about whether we use too much single-use plastic. So you can get the children involved by creating their own mini books on subjects. In the Sky, I said that was one of my favourite titles, and there's a page on the solar system that I'm going to show you in a minute, and with a simple pack of paper plates, they're very inexpensive, or just paper circles, you can make your own solar system, and the children can show them to you in your distance learning lessons and describe the planets like Saturn, and Saturn has the ring and Jupiter is red. Very simple sentences. And if you're interested in science, try making a simple lap book using electricity. This is a perfect title to do that with because it's very, very informative. Okay, so let me just show you a page from inside the book In the Sky, which I mentioned was one of my favorites. This is the page, the chapter, which talks about planets. And it's the perfect page to do the project using the solar system. So you can see here that you can listen to the audio in British or American English, and it describes what the solar system is in English. So a planet goes around a star, 8 planets go around the sun. The sun and its planets are called the solar system. So the children can listen to you as the teacher, or they can listen to the audio provided in the book. And then as homework, you can get them all to go away and create either all of the planets or just a couple of their favourite or most interesting planets. And they can learn about them in this book. And at the bottom of the page, you can see c'è un rimando, like a little signpost that says, go to page 25 for activities. So if you want, you can just read for fun. The children can listen or read for fun. If not, you can send them off to do the activities at home as well. Okay, and I can see your comments. Thank you for that. I can see you all like that idea. So if you're not already on our Facebook page, feel free to join it. If you do any of these activities, we'd love to see them, and you could post them there and share them with us and indeed your other colleagues. So just for the final few minutes before we take your questions, this is the website where you can find all of this material. It's Oxford Learners Bookshelf. And of course, this is where we find our classroom presentation tools for our main Oxford courses anyway. So if you're not already registered, go to Oxford Learners Bookshelf, get registered, tell your students, your pupils to do the same, and then you can really benefit from these readers that are available to you from Oxford until the end of June. And there's a QR code on the screen that will take you there. Okay, thank you, Andy. Next slide. Now, this is just a little reminder before we finish. Has anyone been watching our videos on YouTube with Vanessa Riley? I'd just like to see if anyone's watched them or if anyone's thinking of watching them. Yes, I can see Isabella has. Excellent. Thank you. Brilliant. Well, for those of you that don't yet know, please join Oxford on YouTube every Tuesday for a new video. And they're with Vanessa Riley, who's one of our authors and teacher trainers, and we've done lots of them so far. We celebrated Earth Day together, Laughter Day. The latest video looked at animals, and they're videos with Vanessa for our children. Okay, so tell the families about them, tell all of the parents that you're in contact with in your school groups. I can see Eleanor already has done that. That's brilliant. Thank you, Eleanor. Spread the word, because we'll have this until mid-June at least. Okay, so we've got plenty of videos with Vanessa for the children in our plan. Okay, next slide, Andy. I mentioned Facebook before. Has anyone joined our Facebook page yet? Oh, Viola, that's great. I'm really glad to see that your pupils love Vanessa. That's excellent news. Thank you. Has anyone joined our Facebook page? I can see that someone will. Okay. I'm sure some of you know about this already, but if you don't, oh, yeah, good. Rafaela, Maria, they're both on Facebook. If you use Facebook and you'd like to join Oxford University Press's private group there, this is the QR code or the link to help you to find it. Now, it's a brand new page. It's only been running a couple of months. We post regularly. We have our colleagues Ellie and Christina, who are always on this page talking to teachers, and it's an excellent space where you can discuss ideas, talk to Oxford directly, and me and all of my colleagues are members too, and we'd be really happy to see you there. So if you try any of the ideas from our webinar today, feel free to join Facebook and share what you did with us. I can see some of you are and some aren't, but there's plenty of time. That Facebook page is there to stay. I can see someone asking whether we have Instagram. We don't have Instagram yet. Our Facebook page is very new. So if you have Facebook, that's where we are at the moment. So have a look if you like and use Facebook. Okay, so I'd like to thank you for listening. I've really enjoyed being here with you this afternoon. We're now going to take some questions, and Andy is going to come back on screen as well. I can see that our colleagues at Rizzoli are putting Andy back on the screen. There he is. Hello, Andy.
Back. Hi, everybody.
Back. And what we'd like to say now is, do you have any questions for us that we can answer while we're online? I think I just saw a question go by.
As they're typing in the questions, Jen, I actually caught one or two that I'd like to answer for you, so you can while you're capturing new questions coming in. So yeah. Super. So just first of all, I want to thank my colleague Jennifer Single for showing us some really interesting things to do. Sometimes I forget Jennifer used to be a teacher for so many years, and it really comes through in these presentations with some really fun activities that we can try together with our students. So I hope you were able to pull out some really fun things to try with these books. Remember, as I said in the beginning of the presentation, these are tools, and tools don't teach students. Teachers teach students. And so here, these are really fun ways to be able to actually get your students engaged, get them reading for fun, and getting them to improve their English through reading. So one question that I noticed that I wanted to address while we were capturing other questions that are coming through was someone asked, and I don't remember who it was, about the mind maps, and if they should be used before they read the book or after they read the book. Jen, what do you think about that?
I think for the sake of primary classes, it's best to do the mind maps after the book. One thing that you can do is prepare the structure before reading and then complete the mind map afterwards. But generally speaking, for primary young children, I would do the mind map after reading. Okay, you don't necessarily have to wait until you've read the whole book. You can do it after a chapter, you can complete them gradually, but generally for primary, I would do it afterwards. Yes, so
yeah, I would agree with that.
Kind of, you know, sunk in, the children have absorbed what they've read, but yeah, probably afterwards would be better.
Yeah. And if I could add something to that, I would even suggest if you want to try it before, it's a nice way to elicit what they already know. This way that you have they have a good solid feel for what they're about to learn, and it consolidates better with what they already knew and what they're learning again. And it gives you the information you need to know what to focus on, that it will be new for them in the book itself if you already know the words that they are familiar with, trying to do the exercise prior. So it kind of works both ways.
Yeah, it's a good point, Andy, and especially with quarta and quinta, you can use the mind map before to do a pre-activation of knowledge, especially if it's a CLIL task. So you can even have one part of the mind map dedicated to what you know already, and it helps to formulate the structure. For lower levels, afterwards is typically better, but you can experiment with both and see how they work for you. Okay. Andy, did you say there was another question that you noticed?
There's a couple of technical questions that I just want to address really quickly. One was about the ability to work. The question actually was, can these books be saved on the cloud or on USB devices? Now, it's not necessarily saving the books. You can download these books through our app. So right from the home page, there's a link to download the Oxford Learners Bookshelf app, either on your tablet or on your computer, not on your mobile phone, just because it's just too much information, too many videos and audio that are too heavy for a cell phone. But on your tablet or on your computer, through the app, you can then download these e-readers so that you can use them offline. Again, I showed you before that little wagon wheel. It was that little link for help and support. If you need instructions on how to do that, you can click there and it will give you instructions on how to download your ebooks for use offline. And if you run into any difficulties, obviously you can contact any one of us educational consultants in your area or talk to your Rizzoli agent who can give you a hand with that as well.
Thank you, Andy. I noticed a question earlier, and I'm afraid I missed it because it went by fairly fast, from Manuela. And I've seen a couple of people mentioning similar things about what to do in prima and seconda. And I think that that's a really good question. So I'd like to address that one next, if possible. Now, obviously, in prima and seconda, it's a little bit more difficult because, you know, some students aren't yet, you know, reading particularly fluently. It's more difficult to do any writing activities. What I would recommend with these graded readers for prima and seconda is to make use of them yourselves as teachers for the basis for very practical activities. So rather than asking the children to read them, either ask them to listen to them or to use them yourselves to read from or to play the audio from, because that way they're still absorbing the English language. Remember that when we listen to a graded reader, it's time with a mother tongue speaker. It's like, you know, a lesson with a mother tongue English speaker for the children. So it's very, very valuable, even if you're only listening. So in prima and seconda, I'd recommend using more of them yourselves, using the audio and doing some practical activities, things like the mini books, like my little mini book here, the posters and so on. That's what I do for prima and seconda myself. Okay.
I don't know if you noticed, but in the books you have that ability to go from an American English or a British English. Do you notice you're getting that live today? Because Jennifer is presenting to you in a UK English, and I'm using more of a North American English. Not American, I'm Canadian. Just so you know.
I was going to say, I thought Canadians didn't like to be referred to as Americans, Andy.
Well, there's a big difference, actually. There's a big difference because if you call an American a Canadian, he gets very upset. But if you call a Canadian an American, he politely says, "No, I'm actually Canadian," and laughs it off. I'm just joking for my American friends. I'm just making fun of you a little bit because you make fun of me for being Canadian. But the point here is that I'm speaking with a nice kind of a North American accent, which could be Canadian or American, and your students can hear that using that tab. And Jennifer is speaking with a Brummie accent, but specifically it's UK. And so your students can also hear that UK accent. And please don't forget that in that toolbar for audio, not only can they hear it, but they have the opportunity to try and mimic it. So they can record their voice repeating what they heard and listen back to it. And there really is no better way to learn to speak English well than to mimic what they hear. So don't disregard this really useful way of helping to teach your students pronunciation.
Yeah, you're right, Andy. And actually, you're right. I do have a Brummie accent, which for those of you who don't know is central England from the city of Birmingham. And I can tell how important it is with mimicking language with my own daughter, who was brought up in Italy, born in Italy. But when she says certain words, she repeats them with a Birmingham accent, although we only go once a year. So Andy's right. It's very, very important to actually listen and mimic as much as we can for a primary student.
So just to quickly answer a question, just a really quick question about sound. Because I noticed that someone asks if all the books have this option of sound, and yes, they do. All of these readers have the links to be able to have audio and to hear it in both an American, North American style English and a UK style English. Sorry, Jennifer, I interrupted you.
No, that's right. I can see questions about the validity of these readers and the expiration date. A question from Lara. After the 15th of June, they're actually valid until the end of June. Okay, so not the 15th, they're the end of June. For the time being, that's how it is. And we can't update you on that at this time, but at the moment, they're valid until the end of June, and that's when they will expire. So hopefully it will give you plenty of time to try them out and use them before then.
Let me clarify that because I see some questions about that. Just to be very clear, when you register and you log in, a pop-up will come up in your Oxford Learners bookshelf that says that you have access to 148 e-readers with sound. About 48 of those are at primary level. All you have to do is accept, and you immediately have access to those books until the end of June. And like Jennifer says, that deadline may be extended, but we don't know for sure yet. So at least until the end of June, you have access to those readers.
Yeah, that's right. I also saw a question about the Facebook page. Now, technically, I can't go back to the slide, but I'm not sure if our colleagues could help. Can you do that, Andy, please?
Yeah, I can do it for you. Sure. Let me just go back to that slide. I'll just ask Luca to please put the slides back up, and I'll bring it back to the Facebook page.
Okay, there you are. So you can all see that. So a little team effort here from Oxford and Rizzoli, bringing back up the slide for you all. So please join us on Facebook if you can. We absolutely love to see you there. And it's a very active group. We want teachers to chat with each other and chat with us. So please do follow us on Facebook if you use it. Okay.
So I'm very conscious of time, Jen. I noticed that we're about 5 minutes over. If there aren't any other questions, I'd like to ask our colleagues from Rizzoli if they'd like to include any other questions. Otherwise, perhaps we could just do a little conclusion and wrap up for everyone.
Grazie. Allora,
ciao Mauro.
Ciao Mauro.
Sono tornato.
Mauro, posso dire che sono geloso della tua giacca? Lo voglio anch'io.
La mia giacca, sì, oggi è la prima giacca estiva, guarda. Poi
bellissima.
Un po' di colore, insomma, ci vuole.
Un applauso dei nostri 539 insegnanti e maestre per la giacca di Mauro.
La porterò, grazie, la porterò. Già sono smorto, in più non vado dal barbiere, continuo ad andare, devo fare...
Anch'io.
Non sei solo te.
Quindi... Sentite, grazie davvero. Allora, vabbè, Andy, grazie per la differenza tra canadese e americano che io ho registrato e passerà la storia, poi la rimandiamo, bellissima.
Sì.
E grazie, poi grazie a Jennifer chiaramente, ma grazie per le tante idee, belle, tutte. Che faccio man bassa per lingua 1, voi lo sapete, ma tanto questo che ci tengo tanto a ospitare voi di Oxford, perché poi sono idee meravigliose per lavorare e che naturalmente non valgono soltanto per l'inglese. Allora, prima di lasciarvi salutarvi, io ricordo a tutti solo che la prossima settimana abbiamo un'altra settimana interessante con Primaria Live. Lunedì parliamo di cultura dell'ambiente più che di educazione ambientale. Abbiamo uno dei massimi esperti in Italia, abbiamo Mario Tozzi, che è anche un grande divulgatore, che sa, come dico io, anche come parlare ai ragazzi e ai bambini. Giovedì invece parliamo di immaginario dei bambini, nel senso che parliamo di arte e parliamo di disegno. Quindi con Primaria Live ci vediamo la settimana prossima. Allora io vi saluto, vi lascio salutare. Ciao Jennifer e grazie.
Grazie a tutti, grazie Mauro, ci ha fatto molto
piacere. Grazie a tutte le nostre maestre e finisco, se posso, rubo ancora 10 secondi per dire quanto sono orgoglioso di tutti i nostri maestri che sono riusciti a lavorare online senza nessun avviso. Non è il modo ideale di lavorare, lo capiamo. Siamo qui per dare un supporto per voi, per aiutarvi di fare questo fino a che riuscite di rientrare nelle classi. Fino a quel tempo, come c'è scritto dietro a me, andrà tutto bene. Continuiamo così e grazie a tutti.
Sì. E soprattutto, come dico spesso, ma un po' che non lo dico, è proprio perché insieme non ci arrendiamo e andrà tutto bene. Grazie, arrivederci a tutti.
Ciao.
Arrivederci, bye everyone.
Bye.